Hey everybody, welcome to another Whiskey Wednesday for Argonaut Wine and Liquor. My name is Justin. I am here with Rory, the global ambassador for Glendronach.
Just national
Ambassador.
Yeah.
So US and Canada, still awesome. I'm really happy to have you here. I love doing Scotch videos. It's my jam more than some of the other people's. I'm super excited to have these. We're not trying everything that's on the table today, but we will talk about everything that's on the table. But I'm really excited to learn more about this awesome brand and give our audience a little bit more of an education on Scotch whiskey in general.
Absolutely, yeah. So I represent 3 distilleries. I represent Glendronach. I also represent its 2 sister distilleries, Benriach and Glenglassaugh. But this was my first kind of foray into single malt, and this is kind of where I learned to love single malt back when I was just turning 19 in Scotland, which is legal drinking age, which is great. But really sherry single malt, and Glendronach, if you know Glendronach well, it's like the king of sherry cask matured whiskey in Scotland. It really is, and a classic Highlander as well.
It's like y'all were in not too long ago doing a training in the store. And we got to try through a lot of these, and it was super exciting for me as a Scotch head. And this is just what they're bringing out. I think you brought some stuff from your other 2 distilleries as well. It's just really fun exploring this, even for bourbon drinkers. It's a little bit off the beaten path for bourbon people, but it's a really fun exploration of what whiskey can be from around the world, and this is a really good starting point if you're getting into Scotch. It's not that scary, peaty, punch you in the face kind of thing. It's really
elegant and mellow, and I think for bourbon drinkers as well, to your point, like great entry for looking to make that transition from American bourbon to single malt Scotch without being that kind of like wacky over the head peated single malt. And we have historically done some peated whiskey. We might be bringing that back, but these are all unpeated, so no smoke here. Although there is the kind of one of the distillery's hallmark kind of characteristics is this tobacco leaf note, which is really lovely. When you pair that with the other characteristics, you'll find Sevillian orange, you'll find blackberries, cherries, espresso coffee, leather, sandalwood, and a little bit of tobacco. So it's not necessarily like pipe smoke, but more of like cigar box, that kind of note. And that goes so well with what we do, which is sherry cask. From the day that it's distilled to the day that it's bottled, it's spent an entirety of its lifespan in a sherry cask. So I'm sure we'll talk about that.
Why don't we jump in with the first one that we're going to try?
So actually not pictures on the table here, and I'll pass this to you, Justin, is going to be our Glendronach 12 year, which actually, here. So this is, and maybe we should kind of address the elephant in the room. So you might see a little bit of a difference in packaging from what we're seeing here, which is certainly, we've had this for a long time, more of the classic packaging. We have kind of, as of just last year, we've updated and refreshed our packaging. But good news, we haven't changed any of the spirit that's going in there. None of the whiskey's changed, so everything remains the same, just a nice kind of refresh on some of that packaging. But the 12, excellent gateway. What I really love about this one, and we put it in these kind of sherry-style copita glasses, is this is really the gateway to Glendronach. This will showcase everything about the distillery, about our cask maturation, and really just as a true classic Highland single malt. So if we give that a wee whirl around the glass, what we should see is, I'm not sure if this will show up on camera, but we will find just these thick, heavy legs eventually will start to form down the glass, but it will take quite some time. And so to us, that's really telling me that this is big, bold, rich, heavy, robust spirit, and that's really classic Highland style right there.
And anybody that might be newer into the whiskey world, legs is just how it clings to the glass. The bigger the better generally. Kind of gives you a bolder, more pronounced flavor, more to unpack in there. Where if it's thin, it's going to kind of run down like water, and you're not going to be able to pick up as much. These are a great example of kind of what you want to see.
Definitely.
And for being, not to say the entry level, but the flagship for Glendronach. Seeing that right off the bat means you're getting into something good from the start.
Definitely, and we're not in Scotland, just like it is in America. To be a legally Scotch whiskey, it must be coming in at a minimum 40% ABV or 80 proof. So this is at 43%, so we have dialed it up a little bit. So that's going to give us some weight. Also, the fact that we're using exclusively 2 different styles of sherry casks, Oloroso, and then Pedro Jimenez. But particularly Pedro Jimenez will add a lot of weight to this whiskey as well. So Pedro Jimenez, which I'm sure we'll get into more, is a very sweet dessert-like sherry, literally made through a process called asolio, which is essentially basically taking grapes and then sun drying them, so making raisins, and then taking that and making a sherry wine. So it's very raisiny, very sweet, very thick and creamy, and you can see that coming through on the legs. Yeah. But let's nose this and see how this comes through. So I usually keep my mouth open just a little bit, dipping my nose in just around the glass. And for, again, to your point, entryway kind of a flagship expression, so expressive on the nose. Such a dessert-like nose on this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that big dried fruit, raisiny kind of thing. Really pops off the nose right at first. Very sweet and fruity.
No smoke. Not at all. No. And like maybe the top notes that we're going to find here are going to be orange, like I mentioned that as the distillery character. And then we're going to find maybe some deeper notes there, some subtle notes of cherry, some dark red fruits, but really just that like raisin, sultana, nuttiness as well, but almost like chocolatey on the nose.
Yeah.
And I like to almost put, and a lot of people get hung up on this, like, what does it smell like? What does it taste like? But a really easy way of doing this can be a memory or it can be a season. And for me, this is very much like autumnal, soft, oven-ripened fruits is really what I get. Just lovely. So let's taste this. Slancha. The first one. Cheers. Silky, smooth, easy. I hate to use the word smooth because that's so overused in this industry, but it is very creamy. No harshness at all there. And 12 again is kind of more of that entryway age. Some 12 years can express themselves as quite youthful. Certainly not with this. That Pedro Jimenez cask just kind of coats the palate just like it coated the glass. Sweet, creamy, chocolatey, and not a lick of smoke. Maybe just a touch of almost like that leathery, sandalwood, almost tobacco note coming through. But we'll find that kind of gets more and more intensified as we get older in this whiskey range.
Yeah, and like I agree with you. Smooth is kind of an overused term. Really anybody that's scared of Scotch, don't be scared of this because it does very much drink smoothly. It
really does.
Not in your face at all.
So
not a hint of peat at all, and that's what's scary to a lot of people. Not me. My foray into Scotch was getting punched in the mouth, and I
me too.
Liking it.
Yep. Absolutely. Me too. It was my 18th birthday, and it was someone give you a very renowned PT single malt from a certain island on the west coast, and either you love it or hate it. But I always say this to people: if you like, you can like beer, but you can also not like IPA. It's totally fine. And in single malt Scotch whiskey, we have so much variety of different styles out there. Peat just happens to be one of them. And we do not add any peat into the malting process when we're drying our barley at all. It's all hot air that allows it just to kind of be mellowed rather than actually smoked itself. So that's the 12. Really nice. So it's fully matured again. Just to recap, Oloroso, Pedro Jimenez. You're going to hear me saying that a lot because a lot of these are matured in that combination. Glendronach, fascinatingly, as a distillery, is actually one of the largest, actually the largest importer of Pedro Jimenez or PX casks in Scotland. Typically, when you see sherry on a single malt Scotch, it will almost always be Oloroso sherry. And there's nothing wrong with that. Oloroso is great. We use it. But when it comes to Pedro Jimenez, a little bit more niche, sweet, creamier, harder to find. But we really specialize in that style.
Yeah, and just in my experience, generally, that PX cask plays really well with the malt.
Yeah.
Like you see it occasionally in bourbon as well, with sherry cask in general, and sometimes the PX. But for my money, that flavor profile and the maltiness from the barley in a single malt, you're really kind of just hitting the peak there.
Definitely. And one thing that makes Glendronach a wee bit more unique as well is that and you'll find that as we go into the next one, which is the 15, which is one of the more highly coveted expressions that we do, just because it's a really nice balancing point. But you'll start to see from, I'd say, here on out, you found it in the 12, but really we're going to see it more expressed here, is that we're using specifically Spanish oak. So to your point, we're talking about bourbon barrels, which are legally made with American oak, which is a lot more different style of tannins. And tannins in American oak will come through as more softer, maybe more citrusy, more vanilla notes.
Yep.
And then Spanish oak, certainly you're going to get more of this like tobacco, deep, rich character coming through, more of the structure, a little bit more intensity on the tannic note, which builds character and kind of a backbone to these whiskies. So we're not losing all of the balance between the distillery character and the sherry. We've got these big tannins coming through and propping up all these big flavors. So we'll find that in the 15, which is personally one I would say maybe my desert island whiskey, because this is the one that is always a crowd pleaser, especially those that are new to Scotch.
Yeah.
This is such a good one. Cheers to this one. So let's analyze this. So again, looking at the legs, nothing changes. Again, if not anything, it's going to be heavier, thicker legs. It's really clinging to that glass. If you're using a clean Glencairn, if it's the first thing that's going into that glass, you will see this lovely pearl beaded necklace forming on the top of the glass. And again, it takes a while for those legs to form. That is how just big and robust this spirit is going in there. Should note as well, the colour on these are all naturally coloured. So in Scotland, you can use what's called caramel colourings. It's an artificial colouring. It's called E150A. Some people say it affects flavour. Some people say it won't. It's very small amounts that they'll use. Thankfully, Glendronach, and actually its two sister distilleries, we don't use any caramel colourings.
Yeah.
So it's all naturally coloured. So these might change in colour from batch to batch. But the thing that should stay consistent as much as we can is the flavour, the aromas, and the mouthfeel as well. And lovely colour, and that's coming from the sherry casks and the Spanish oak.
Yeah, and that's something that I personally like a lot about the Scotch world in general. Is it tends to use the caramel coloring a little less than the bourbon world, because bourbon's all about consistency, top to bottom, but consistency and quality and flavor, and Scotch is the more important part. And the uniqueness of color batch to batch, whether or not the flavor is different, is just kind of fun for me.
It is, and that's the thing. I think this is more broadly talking about the category rather than just Glendronach, but it will apply to Glendronach, is that whiskey, whether it's bourbon, Japanese, Indian, Scotch, Irish, whiskey itself is an organic product, and it's spirit that we can try and get that spirit pretty much to be consistent, but what happens in the cask, whether it's the environmental changes, the climate, the wood, every cask is its own unique kind of tannic pore structure, and so how that interacts with the spirit is totally unique, and we'll talk more about that when we talk about single cask and how that's unique. But marrying these whiskies together to give us a consistent product year in, year out is probably the most magical thing about the industry, is the people behind making this consistent, this inconsistent product consistent. And that's amazing.
Yeah, I've met a couple master blenders in my time with Argonaut, and the skill that they have and the artistry that they have is
next to none.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and I envy them. In one, just getting to do this all day.
Yeah.
But two, just like that. It's almost an innate ability. It feels like it can be trained, but some people are just
born with it.
Yeah.
Or I mean, that's the thing as well. Like it sounds like an amazing job, but part of it, I think, it also terrifies me. The idea that you're forecasting constantly for the future, and you're constantly trying to bring consistency to inconsistency. It's an incredible job. It really is. And then also the fun of selecting single casks, like we'll talk about as well. So let's nose this and taste it. So what's going on? I would say for me, the nose on this is probably, I said it before, but the most balanced in our core 12, 15, 18, 21. This is the most balanced. This is really the tipping point before we get into the really classic sherry bomb notes, what we'll find in the 18 and 21. But what I get on this one, it's still orange like we found in the 12, but it's now candied orange peel. It's got that kind of like citrus, but now it's kind of candied rather than being more expressive and citric like in the 12. But the thing that really jumps out, and this is the consistent for me personally, and nothing's, of course, it's all subjective at the end of the day, is maraschino cherry. It's that real kind of gooey, kind of cocktail brandied cherry is what I find really coming through in this one. Again, no smoke whatsoever on the nose.
No, not at all.
Dark chocolate, a little bit of nuttiness there too, but just, again, super creamy. You can even smell that sweetness and creaminess on the nose. Yeah. And this is coming in at 46%. It's, again, a combination of Oloroso and Pedro Jimenez, just like in the 12. And to kind of piggyback on the blending part that we talked about, that's not to say that we move the whiskey from Oloroso to Pedro Jimenez. That is to say that our master blender is actually taking, let's just say for ease of example, 100 casks that may be going into this. That's not how many goes into this, but let's say it's 100 casks. A proportion of those will be going into the vat, will be Pedro Jimenez, and a proportion will be Oloroso. So we very, very seldom will move the whiskey from one cask to another. It's the blender's job to create a cocktail of different casks to give us that consistency that we spoke about. So let's taste this. So we're really starting to get into that, I think, what really allows Glendronach to shine, which is you're getting a lot of sherry now, but you're still getting that distillery character, which is that orange, bramble, cherry, leather, sandalwood, tobacco note coming through. We're really starting to get into this realm of like old study, which I really love, like sitting by the fire, getting into the winter season now, which will amplify when we get to this stuff, but just so well balanced. That is hitting and ticking all the boxes, from the light with the duality with this dark, deep note as well coming through.
So it's very much like sitting reading a book in an old cabin.
That's exactly it. I want you to hold that thought, because we'll certainly try that when we get to the other ones, because that is, I always say, like old study vibes with these whiskies, and certainly we're starting to kind of get into that realm now, going from autumn with the 12 into that winter type.
But like, even though some of the flavors are starting to come to the front a little bit, it's still very well balanced. Nothing's overtaking anything too much.
And that's the hallmark of our really good whiskeys, when you can taste everything going on. You can taste the distillery, the cask, and maybe kind of some of the more kind of individual elements all coming together, and that's key. So that was the 15. Let's talk a little bit about the 18. So this might be my desert island whiskey, the 15. The 18 though, and I said this is one of the more highly coveted items with the 15, but this is probably the most popular out of our core range, because this is old school single malt, is what I like to say to people. Now, we're not sampling, sadly, but I mean, just look at the colour on that whiskey. So now we're really starting to get into this realm of the sherry it's not overtaking the spirit, but it is really starting to influence the flavour profile here. And what makes the 18 slightly more unique compared to the other whiskies, like the 12, the 15, and the 21, is that this is exclusively 100% Oloroso sherry cask. So we're not going to find that creamy kind of sweetness that we found from the Pedro Jimenez. What we will find in turn, more of this like lovely kind of nutty walnut bread, tobacco, old study vibe. So if you really like that intensity of sherry, 100%, this is absolutely fantastic.
It's going to be like this and the 12, a little bit on the brighter side. This is going to be more of that very wintertime.
Sit in leather armchair, over a book, fireplace is on. That's the one for the mountains. Absolutely.
Got a good cigar with it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, we are tasting the 21, so let's kind of hit this one real quick, and then we'll get onto the single cask if we've got time. So 21, this is going back to Pedro Jimenez Oloroso. We're now at 48% ABV, so we're almost 100 proof here, because we want to make sure we're achieving the balance between the cask and the distillery. We don't want to drop that down to 40%, heavens forbid. So we want to keep it nice and high in the ABV, so we're getting that lovely punchiness from the character of the distillery and the balance from the casks as well. This is dessert in a glass. This is what I would have after a meal. Dark chocolate, espresso. This is the digestif. This is just very much like plum pudding, dark chocolate cake. Still got that nuttiness, still got that dried fruit note, leather, tobacco, just lovely. Big, big nose, very expressive at this point. Let's get a wee taste. Just old school. Takes you right back. I mean, that's the whiskey that you'd maybe find back in like the 1980s, 1970s, stuff that you just don't find anymore. There's distilleries that do this style of whiskey, but I would say Glendronach is one of the very few that make it in a style that is truly old school. Wooden washbacks. We have 4 stills, all copper kind of pot stills that have these incredible deep line arms that give you a heavy spirit. And Spanish, Pedro Jimenez Oloroso. There's very few distilleries out there doing that. It's incredible.
This is fantastic. It's a clear evolution of the line. And it's starting to bring those deeper, richer, woodier, more tobacco-y notes to the fore instead of the sherry. Like that wood is really starting to peek through rather than the fruit. And like everyone's great, but for certain occasions or certain moods, each one of these will fit a different vibe.
This is definitely special. This is like this is the stuff that you want to really, whether you're celebrating with friends, after a meal digestif, or just kind of sitting in that study, relaxing over a good book.
This would be something getting married this summer, so
Oh,
like after the ceremony up in the woods.
congratulations! Absolutely, yeah. This is the one to crack open. 100%. Oh yeah, and it delivers every time. I feel like this whiskey is big, it's bold, but it also has that incredible duality of having the brightness and also that really dark heaviness without either or kind of winning out in that. It's just balanced.
Yeah, and
Lovely.
we've talked about it every glass we've tried, but just that the balance, the consistency, the fun in exploring the flavors in these. You can find everything you're trying to look for and maybe some more with every one of these. It's a different one's going to kind of
Definitely
take the forefront, take the lead on these, and it's always really fun to explore these. And you don't necessarily get to try a 21-year-old when you're trying bourbon.
Absolutely, I know, and that's it. And to your point, everyone has a different occasion as well. So whether the 12 might be your more daily drinker, or going into the 21, which is of course for the special occasions, I like to take this for Thanksgiving. The 15 is like what I like to take for those family occasions, family gatherings.
It's a great sweet spot between celebration and everyday.
Definitely. So if you're Scotch curious and you're going to be in the bourbon world, I would definitely recommend Glendronach. Maybe the 12 or the 15 as a starting place, and then see where that takes you. But we do have one last thing we can maybe talk about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very special. So as we talked about with our master blender, who I haven't named yet, who is Dr. Rachel Barry. She's one of the very few ladies in this industry. She's 30 plus years as a master blender, so she's certainly got a wealth of knowledge and experience working at many distilleries in Scotland. She will select a very small amount of single casks to be selected based on their characteristics. They should be tasting like Glendronach, which of course it's all Glendronach, but really showcasing the characteristics of the distillery. And it should be exceptional in its performance of delivering really a unique flavor experience for the particular cask that it sits in. So this is a 1992, which means it was distilled in 1992, which we can maybe be more specific with that. 27th of November 1992, which is a good year because that's the year I was born. Cask 5866, and it was fully matured for 29 years in a Pedro Jimenez puncheon, which if we've learned anything, PX or Pedro Jimenez, sweet, creamy, velvety on the palate, raisins, chocolatey, very decadent. This is cask strength, so we haven't added any water. This is like going into the warehouse, tasting that straight from the cask. We got a whopping 629 bottles from that puncheon, which is a 500-litre cask. How do I describe this one? Each cask is different. If you are a fan of the 18 and the 21, you like those big intensity sherried notes. I mean, the flavor description, let's see what Rachel said on this. Honeyed walnut dates, sultana plum skin, velvety raisins, spiced plum pudding, lingering dates, and mocha espresso. It is big, it is bold, but at the same time, elegant and expressive.
Last time you came to visit, when it was just a staff training and we weren't doing the video, you all brought some of these. I don't think it was this cask specifically.
We got a few of them,
but they were fantastic. Like a really fun exploration of what Glendronach can be and what it is, and maybe its purest form. I
would agree with that. Yeah, it definitely is. You're really seeing a snapshot, whereas we're seeing kind of the whole picture here. We're focusing on like one tree in the forest, and I can tell you so much about the distillery, the cask, and how it's individual. And just to give you an idea on the proof of this, we're looking at almost bang on 100.8 proof, which is 50.4% ABV. So it's lost a little bit of the angel share over 29 years, but it's still packing a punch with the flavor.
Yeah, absolutely. And this whole line is something that expresses something I like, which is a little bit higher proof in the Scotch, because a lot of them will really ride that 40% minimum and kind of keep a little too close to that. And I like seeing as we go up in age that it's getting more
expressive. That's what we should be delivering is flavor is key. So 40%, smooth, it's easy, it's introductory, but as you look to kind of expand your palate, certainly gaining ABV or proof is going to give you just more flavor. And that's what we try and do here with casks, distillery character, and of course proof as well.
And I would say you guys succeed. So well done.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for bringing these on today.
My pleasure.
Happy to have you come back again anytime you want for any of your other brands.
I love that.
But everybody, we all have I believe all of these are available at Argonaut right now. If you don't, talk to us on the stores. We'll get it for you. Rory, thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Yeah, lunch it. Cheers. Thanks so much.